Hi and welcome to CertiKit. One of the key components of an ISO management system is the setting of objectives, covered in section 6.2 of the standard. Another is monitoring, measurement, analysis and evaluation, which is defined in section 9.1. But what's the difference between these requirements, and what kind of objectives can you set in an information security context? In essence, what we're talking about here is the concept of objectively measuring things, which, before we begin, has its own challenges. What should we measure, and can we be certain that we are measuring them in the same way each time? Once we've decided this, we need to analyze and evaluate the figures, hopefully to deduce some useful findings that may be used as a trigger for action to make us more secure. So, for example, we may decide that monitoring and measuring the number of risks we have is a good idea and is fairly easy, as we record them on a handy spreadsheet. We can then analyze them by score or risk level and evaluate whether the numbers are going up or down, and hopefully why. This is useful trend information because it could be regarded as a key indicator of whether our information security management system, or ISMS, is having a beneficial effect on the risks our organization faces. This is largely what section 9.1 is about, the effectiveness of the ISMS. So that's monitoring. It's concerned with identifying and understanding trends. But what about objectives? To be able to set an objective, we have to be able to quantify what good looks like. So, taking the risk example, we might say that we want to have no current risks that are classified as high severity. We're now judging the figures produced by our monitoring, measuring, analysis and evaluation activities against a benchmark which defines whether it's good or bad. And by setting an objective, we're also implying that we're going to take some action if our objectives are not being met. And this may have some resource implications and cost money. So you may decide to monitor quite a number of areas in order to understand what's going on, but the number of those that you set objectives for will typically be lower. Sometimes because you can't easily define what good looks like, and sometimes because you can't commit resources to meeting the objective once you've set it. Let's look at a couple of more examples. If you're subject to the GDPR or similar data protection legislation, you will need to monitor the number of data breaches that are reportable to your data protection authority. So, by law, you have to monitor, measure, analyze, and evaluate such breaches. But what about an objective? Maybe your objective is 0. So, if you have even 1, then your objective is missed, and you should be prepared to take action to correct the situation. Or maybe you're willing to accept that a few breaches may happen, so you could set your objective to, say, 3. But that may be seen by management as unacceptable, as it implies that you're almost trying to have 3 breaches. So maybe you don't set an objective at all, but just monitor it. Like many possible objectives in information security, it's a difficult decision because most of the time you're trying to avoid things happening at all. A second example of an objective could be in the area of awareness training. You should be keeping records of who received training and when, so the base numbers are there. You can certainly measure and report on how many hours of training were delivered. But the number of employees will go up and down over time as people get recruited and people leave, so the total number of hours of training delivered is probably not a meaningful objective. Maybe instead the percentage of employees receiving awareness training over the last 12-month period would be a more useful target to set. The point is that careful choice of what to monitor and where not to set objectives is key to creating an ISMS that delivers results without introducing an unsustainable admin overhead. Thanks for watching.